guys should all have an order of presentation so you can follow along, so you know who's going next, and hopefully that will help smooth things along as well. The open house will follow, and it will be in rooms 7, 9, and 10, and all of the groups are doubled up, and which group goes where is on the door of each room. All right, so with that, I will turn it over to Kendall, who's going to say a few things about what the ADs have been up to.
So I just wanted to show you guys some of the things that we've been doing that you probably notice but don't necessarily think about. News from the ADs. I put very little work into thinking about what I would say, so mostly showing you pictures. So here's our pictures, your ADs for this year. We've definitely been keeping the website updated. And part of that you'll see is taking new photos, but getting your photos on the website is a big part of that. Sending out newsletters every month. Hopefully you guys have been opening those. If you didn't look at the April one, there's a picture of me wearing a jetpack, so you need to look at that one. Eric's been editing pretty much every video that the lab has ever made, and captioning them and putting them on our YouTube account. Blogging pedagogy has been redesigned, and there's a screenshot of the new site. Kate's taken some awesome new photos for us that are on the lab's Flickr account, so there's just a couple of them that you can see there. We've been maintaining our Twitter and Facebook accounts, so our social media has been updated. Workshops have been held. Unfortunately, I only had pictures from the Viz workshop, but here's everybody making the cool Viz paper cranes. We'll get the rest of those pictures onto our Flickr eventually. Lots of certificate badges earned. So for those of you who've been working on the certificate stuff this year, great work so far, and I hope that you'll continue. None of us have really gotten through the goalpost yet, but this was a huge leap forward in terms of seeing progress on the certificate. So those have been really cool. If you haven't started your certificate but you're interested, you should get on this DWRL certificate wiki and see what people have submitted so far for the different badges, because you can see examples of everybody's projects there. So those are really cool. Babies have been had. And of course, the speaker series event just wrapped up really well. We have some photos from the presentation, and the workshop that Jody Shipka held was also the Haystack RecComp webinar. So we had some virtual participants following along on their own as well. So that's just some of the stuff that the ADs have been up to.
We've been experimenting a little bit with the new 3D Prezi interface, so we hope that you enjoy that. We'll go ahead and get started. This year on Viz, we expanded Viz's audience beyond the academy, provided pedagogical resources for students and instructors interested in visual culture, and maintained and updated the site's pre-existing content. With over 1,000 views this academic year, Viz remains the most visible publication in the DWRL, with visitors from over 200 countries.
Viz had a number of extremely popular posts this year. That's what they tell me anyway. I was on fellowship for half of it. As I told you at the mid-year showcase, I attempted to write on landscape design in Austin for the course of an entire semester, and magically I succeeded. The first one was on Austin's Highway 35 reconstruction project that you guys can hear about. Another popular post from this semester was Scott's post on the movie Frozen. Basically, the gist of it is that Frozen is a feminist deconstruction of the old Disney stereotypes, and a lot of people really like that. Sarah's two posts on the Breaking Bad finale were really, really interesting and popular. The gist of her argument is that Breaking Bad toys with cinematic cowboy cliches. As you can see in this image here, which is taken from Sarah's first post on Breaking Bad, I believe, Walt stands as if he's set up for a high noon duel, yet he's wearing whitey-tighties and wallabies. You can't see the wallabies, but you can obviously see the whitey-tighties.
Another popular post we had was Rachel's reaction shots and reader response at the Purple Wedding, which examines creative fan responses to a particular event in the popular HBO show, The Game of Thrones. She suggests that art circulating on the internet is effectively creating a community of reader response that draws on larger context and pop culture references. So her post essentially wonders, quote, How does visual communication change the idea of reader response? My personal two-part post on superhero footwear explores the importance of shoe options for female superhero costumes by performing analytical close readings of some images. This particular post performs a close visual analysis of the artistic choice to depict Batwoman in an active pose with serviceable boots replacing the classic superheroine high heel. And Iva Kennard, a student in Laura's Rhetoric 309K, tackles the media phenomenon of documenting intense personal anguish during the Olympic Games in Documentation of Loss, Observing Failure in the Modern Olympics. Kennard analyzes the compulsion to turn failure into a testimony of good sportsmanship or even inspiration through various techniques of visual rhetoric.
I'll just briefly highlight one of my more popular posts this year for Viz was the Google Map, my first post of contemporary literature. It's received nearly 30,000 views at this point, and it visualizes geography and topography that a number of late 20th and early 21st century authors occupy across the planet. I hope to revisit it this summer and add more authors and texts.
Since our static content sections provide some of Viz's biggest hits, we decided to expand the lesson plans and theory sections. For example, Laura Thane wrote about how to apply Walter Benjamin's The Work of Art in the Age of Mechanical Reproduction to visual rhetoric. On the other hand, Scott Garbaz prepared a Prezi toolbox for instructions with tips and hints about how to incorporate Prezis into lessons. They can serve as learning aids for students, but they can also be mediums for students to construct rhetorical arguments. Our workshop this year was on incorporating cameras and photographs into the classroom. We discussed using photographic terms for visual analysis in the rhetorical classroom, offered lesson plans for teaching ethos via selfies, pathos via ruin porn, and how to use lighting to make your photographs rhetorical.
One of the more popular themes, both among ourselves and in terms of web hits we get from other sites, has been various treatments of gender issues. So 3 notable posts deal with Twin Peaks, Beyonce, and Lilo and Stitch. So Jen wrote an excellent piece on the Twin Peaks, rating the tendency for real-life female victims of crime to go unseen, unnoticed, and remembered, both in real life and in the rather acclaimed TV show. Rachel looked at how Beyonce balanced assertive boasting with humble inclusiveness to try to demonstrate her own work in progress as a public feminist. And I followed up on Casey's excellent discussion of Lilo and Stitch with a look at how much kind of deeper and more interesting its feminism is than, say, Frozen's from my more popular article. So rereading these articles, I was struck by the way that each dramatized the difficulties inherent in minority representation while maintaining an almost jarring sense of polyvocality. So we have gushing about a pop fitness icon, pointing out the deep flaws in a acclaimed television masterpiece, or looking at the thematic unity of a, to be honest, moderately successful Disney movie. And I think we did, through all of these things, a really great job of representing different aspects of what it means to be a public intellectual in the internet age.
Almost all of our writers have written posts related to style and outward appearance. So Sarah's excellent post uncovers the Depression-era style origins of the Hunger Games films. I responded in a post to Sarah's with my own that's about the co-optation of language and rhetoric from the film and book, so images from the CoverGirl Capital collection, and some brightening Botox ads that ask if the odds could be in your favor. And then to continue the thread about appearance in the female body, I'll also highlight Casey's most recent post, a great post on the DWRL Beauty campaign. She connects the campaign, which brings together a somewhat diverse group of women as representatives of new standards of beauty, with the affirmational signs that have been appearing lately in UT's women's bathrooms. Maybe some of you have seen these. She concludes, and this is a great quote, "The signs, even in kindness, even in the suggestion that all women were beautiful, relied on the discourse of attractiveness to empower."
Last semester, the Harry Ransom Center acquired the Magnum Archive Collection, which kicked off with an exhibition in the HRC's gallery. All fall semester bloggers contributed posts on this exhibit. Laura introduced the series by exploring the ramifications of working in a commercial agency like Magnum versus working independently. I wrote a comparison between Robert Frank's 1950s The Americans and Magnum's contemporary Postcards from America series. Jen wrote about Jonas Bendixen's Spaceship Junkyard, and drew connections between industrial waste, fantasy, and environmentalism. Meanwhile, Casey wrote on Jim Goldberg's Rich and Poor series, in which she examined themes of poverty and exploitation. Outside of the Magnum exhibit, we also discussed different types of photography. Laura's student Eva Kennard wrote about images of defeat at the Olympics. Jen also wrote about the Olympics. She looked at the Sochi Games from a political standpoint, highlighting the stark contrast between images of violence done against Pussy Riot and overwhelmingly patriotic images of athletes and marching bands that proliferated. I wrote a series of posts on selfies from the Mars rover post-human selfie to the Academy Award celebrity selfie. Our overlapping scholarly and personal interests also often led us to examine the world of celebrity culture. Rachel's most recent post examines the celebrities of Game of Thrones at the Purple Wedding. Casey wrote about the gays and ballroom culture in the big hit documentary Paris is Burning, while Scott compared two Disney celebrities, Elsa from Frozen and the original princess of Sleeping Beauty.
So finally, I want to thank all of our diligent and thoughtful contributors. I think we've had a really successful year, and we look forward to expanding readership, cultivating more conversations, and promoting visual technologies. This summer, we're especially looking forward to redesigning the site and finally getting rid of this eye, which I hate. I don't know if any of you agree. So we hope that you'll stay tuned and watch the death of the Web 1.0 eye. Thank you so much, everyone.
Hi, we're Average, the audiovisual recording group, and I let myself be persuaded by Jake to the horrible idea of like doing a little skit for this.
I have to pause. I made a joke, and Axe was like, "That's a really good idea. We should do that."
All right, don't judge.
Doc, thanks so much for seeing me.
Yes, hello, Herr Cowan.
I am just so, I'm so frustrated, and I'm at my wit's end, Dr. Frud. And
What seems to be the problem?
Well, Doc, I have been having these horrible nightmares.
Ah, yes.
I've been part of this grad student collective group, and I don't see anybody. I just hear these voices, these bodiless voices.
Oh, yes. Yes.
It's frightening.
The voice without the body.
Exactly.
It can be frightening. We also call it unheimlich.
Yes, exactly. It chokes me up. It's unheimlich.
Tell me about the voices.
Well, the voices, I mean, they're horrific, Doc. The first one, there's this figure in this.
A figure of speech?
No. Hey, that's clever, but no. It's a figure who is just at a podium, who watches over me with these moose-like antler horns that are almost like hands, and he just watches me.
Just one moment. Maybe it would be a good point in the session to talk about your father.
Well, I think it might. There's a relationship between this male figure and my father. I think that's exactly it, Dr. Freud. Dr. Freud. I'm sorry. He's watching me, and he's politicizing me, and he's talking down to me.
Tell me about the moose.
The moose. It's brown and it's big, and
it is totemic, perhaps.
Totally. And I think to talk about it anymore would be a taboo. So, but there's also another figure.
I can see what you did there. They have a similar totem with the primitive peoples in Australia.
Yes, exactly. And then there's another figure who talks down to me as well. And this other figure, she's constantly watching me. She has this funny accent. She's from somewhere else, she's from the land of Oz or something.
Yes.
And she sometimes she looks like a coffee robot, which is very upsetting, Doc.
The unhuman.
Yes,
the superhuman.
So it's frightening, Doc.
Do you feel something is taken away from you by this person watching?
I do. I feel like she cuts me up, and she tries to save bits and pieces of me. It's like she's archiving me in certain ways.
Yes, very Kafkaesque.
Yes, she's writing on me, and
I'm sorry, that is just weird. Tell me about the archive. What does it look like?
Well, the archive, it's shelves, and they're dirty, and there's other archivers there. One of them has long hair and a bad goatee.
Have you thought about strategies for support?
I feel like there's a game going on.
Do you see yourself as a player in the game?
I feel like I'm being
sitting
played.
on the sidelines. You need to, my advice is, have you tried lucid dreaming?
Oh, lucid dreaming. You mean as if to, excuse me, to hack the dream?
Yes, you may say so.
You know, you might be a bit of a hack, but that's a good idea, Doc.
This is the strategy I would recommend.
Well, there is one other figure, Doc.
Yes.
It's a figure who has tried to castrate me. I mean,
yes.
as you can see, I'm really at my wit's end. I'm not in a suit today. I'm usually in a suit. I'm unshaven. My hair is perfect, so you know it's not really a psychotic break. But this figure, he's constantly telling me what to do and talking down to me, and he has this horrible German accent.
I think the
Terrible.
session is quite
No, let me
finished.
tell you about it. His name.
No,
my
excuse
dreams,
me,
it's
I kann
Axe.
dich nicht mehr verstehen, tut mir leid. Yeah, we didn't really plan how to finish this really well.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say a quick thank you to everybody from the lab and the lab members, because without you all and the experiences that I've gained from working in the lab and working with the Jump, I would not have this on-campus interview at Gallaudet next week, Friday. Thank you.
All right, excellent. And with that, we have created a video that is very close to a PowerPoint that is very close to 7 minutes. So we hope you enjoy. Hi.
Hi. This video marks the first time you will see us together as managing editors.
Although we've both been co-managers of the Journal for Undergraduate Multimedia Projects, or the JUMP, in previous semesters.
I'm Rachel Mazik.
And I'm Meredith Coffey.
This video aims to not only showcase our work on the Jump's upcoming issue,
Issue 5.2.
but to also showcase the Jump itself and the work of its many contributors over the years.
Both student contributions and contributions from our editorial collective.
Of course, we will also give you a sneak preview of some of our upcoming projects.
Stay tuned. These projects include Remix and Higher Education, The Rhetoric of Memes, and English is for Squares, Thomas Was Alone as a Classroom Text. All of these projects speak to a critical pedagogy, critical in many senses. They speak to the critical or essential work that we as instructors do. The projects are also critical in that they do the work of critique and demonstrate students' abilities as critical thinkers. Further, the work is critical in that it criticizes institutional impediments to learning, such as barriers to Creative Commons, resistance to collaborative work, and even resistance to video gaming in the classroom. Finally, the issue functions as a contribution to critical and digital pedagogy as a discipline. Moreover, and increasingly, the JUMP student authors illustrate new media literacies including performance, appropriation, judgment, collective intelligence, transmedia navigation, networking, negotiation, and play. That is, the capacity to experiment as a form of problem solving. The collaborative and connective nature of the JUMP occurs not only digitally, within the cybersphere, but geographically as well. Our connections span across the country and even internationally. Our collaborative network has expanded greatly over the years, but it all began with our editorial collective. The JUMP's founding editor, Justin Hodgson, earned his PhD at Clemson and, with support from his cohort there, went on to establish the JUMP here at the University of Texas at Austin. Although Justin is now at Indiana University, the co-managing editors have all been based at UT. And, as the map shows, our network spans widely across the country. Thanks to the help of this growing network, the upcoming issue of the JUMP is due for publication on May 28th. It bears the exciting and multifaceted title, Critical Pedagogy and New Media Literacies. But we also wanted to take this opportunity to compose a remix as a way of furthering our argument about the critical work that the JUMP creates and circulates. Keep an eye out for sneak previews of our soon-to-be-published projects. Now, without further ado, here is our Jump promo.
The Jump bridges the gap between the classroom and the online scholarly publishing world. It nests additional learning opportunities in the work students are already doing. The Jump tries to change the relationship between students and scholars. Often a wedge seems to exist between undergraduates and the professional academic world. The work that's done seems only practical to those who want to go on and specialize in the field. The Jump demonstrates that undergraduate work can contribute to academic fields, that it can find a larger audience, and that it does have value beyond what can be quantified and graded.
With this issue of The Jump, issue 4.1, we are launching our new site designs. Additionally, we've worked to become more and more ensconced in the Digital Writing and Research Lab at the University of Texas at Austin, becoming part of their project group structure.
Hi, I'm Rachel.
And I'm Steven.
We're the co-managing editors of this issue of The Jump.
Hi, I'm Meredith Coffey.
And I'm Connie Steele. We're the co-managing editors for issue 5.1 of the Journal for Undergraduate Media Projects. I'm filming here in Austin, Texas.
And today I'm filming from Miami, Florida.
I think The Jump is teaching us all about digital writing. Any good teacher will tell you that they learn mostly from their students, and I think we as teachers have a great opportunity to learn from the way our students are interacting with media and how they are incorporating media into their own writing practices by collating student work into a peer-reviewed journal. It gives teachers a broad sense of what constitutes multimodal writing, and I think that's extremely valuable both for the student and for the teacher.
The gameplay in Thomas Was Alone constantly exemplifies literary concepts and compels students to ask questions about life and purpose and humanity. Thomas Was Alone stands as an excellent text for teachers not simply because it illustrates literary concepts and themes, but because it does so in a way not wholly accessible through traditional classroom media.
So that one idea can evolve into another. Into the unknown.
I think honestly, obviously, the more materials that you can pull from, the more creative you can be.
I don't think it affects my ability to be creative because I feel like if you really want to use something, you can find a way to make it happen, whether that's recreating it in your own words or figuring out a different way to do it. I feel like there's always a way. If there's a will, there's a way.
I probably shouldn't be doing this. In fact, I know I shouldn't be doing this. But this is a pretty good response, I think. This essay that the student has written for The Jump is an amazing electronic monument, and one that I think will certainly result in a huge awareness.
This is evolution. Copy, transform, and combine. And culture evolves in a similar way, but the elements aren't genes, they're memes. Ideas, behaviors, skills. Memes are copied, transformed, and combined.
There it is. Done.
Machinic Invention. We'd like to welcome everyone here today. We're a new group this year, and we'd like to thank the lab for all the support that we've been given. Machinic Invention was initially conceived as an experimental project group. We wanted to see both what could be done, pedagogically and scholarly, with a range of devices, and we wanted to see what we as lab members could accomplish over the course of the year. We spent a lot of time scrounging around for parts, trying to figure out the affordances of the Arduino, the microcontroller we ended up spending most of our time with. Working with these blended systems was an interesting experience for all of us. They make it apparent that you're accountable for both physical and textual engagements, hardware and software.
One of our main projects this year was 3D printing. We purchased the printer bot and worked together to assemble it, though really I think Stephen did most of the assembly. The movable body is made of lightweight wood, metal rods, string, and screws, and the motors, heater, extruder, fan, and circuit board do the rest of the work. This semester, I worked on calibrating the printer bot and making stuff with it. This is not a plug-and-play device. You have to learn certain programs. I used Repetier host here. And there's a lot of trial and error to determine the right settings, positions, code, and all that. We were eventually successful in making several small 3D objects, which you will get to see a little later. We're also going to be doing a demonstration of the printer bot during the open house.
Early in the year, we were working through a series of Arduino tutorials. One of them was a simple temperature meter gussied up as a love test. It's a pretty basic project, but when the thermometer wasn't working with just a finger, I ended up kissing the device. This project really highlighted the demands that non-human actors can exert on us. Here I was kissing a robot just so I could see more lights turn on.
One way we envision such activities like the one Stephen just described, working in the classroom is to discuss revision. What happens when you take away or you combine projects? We see it happen textually, but then we see the physical product of that. And we think that that would be really helpful and helped us understand our own revisions a little bit better. A computer that's sort of designed for such an activity is Raspberry Pi. It's a credit card-sized computer that plugs into your TV and keyboard. It was developed in the UK with the purpose of teaching people all over the world computer science, particularly children, even though it took me a lot of work. And you can do a bunch of different stuff on it, and I hope to show you a project from last night. I made a little arcade, some violent video games, so I hope everyone here is of age. And you have to sort of set it up, the Pi itself, and set it up as like an arcade, and then configure your controller, and then you have Super NES for like $35 plus parts you have around your house. Pretty fun.
Like the other groups, we did a workshop earlier this semester. Folks got a chance to play with the Arduinos and look at the first 2 tutorials in the Arduino project book. Most of what we did was plugging in wires and LED lights. That's like all we ever do. But we did get to look at a little bit of code, like this program to make lights blink. It was fun to look back at the early tutorials and see how much more intuitive the process of constructing them had become. In June, 3 of us will be going to the Computers and Writing Conference in Pullman, Washington. Rhiannon will be presenting from afar. Our work this spring has been focused on preparing for our Computers and Writing panel, and we're going to tell you each a little bit about our projects now.
At Computers and Writing, I'll be presenting a project that hopefully will raise questions about our everyday interactions with the familiar keyboard. The first part of the project involves highlighting the writer's sense of embodiment through the use of various sensors. Using these, I want to introduce unconscious and environmental co-authors that insert themselves into the text depending on both the writer's vital signs and the environment. Along with these sensors, I'll be working to directly connect a human co-author to the writing process by connecting the Arduino to the keyboard interface. From here, this collaborator or saboteur can impact the writer's text through some elementary circuit bending and alternative input methods.
My portion of the project will deal with experimental activities in the classroom. Specifically, I'm asking, can we describe or create a relationship between a prototyping board like the Arduino and an essay draft? So I'll demonstrate for the group some activities on essay experimentation, such as cutting a paragraph into individual sentences to work on organization, or maybe dropping in various types of evidence into the argument, seeing how the discussion changes. Related prototyping experiments might involve making lights blink on command in different sequences, either purely on the prototyping board or by adding variables to some skeletal code. Students might try daisy chaining their elements, see what they do. This can help them discover how elements are connected physically as well as immaterially through code.
So I'll be gone during the conference, but at another conference. So I'm going to send some video. And the video I'm looking at combines footage from different television and films where there's an instance where there's a writing computer. And it's sort of looking at the writing computer as a trope. And so far what I find is that the writing computer is a point of evil or bad. It kind of confuses and messes with the writer's intention, the person's intention, in most cases, except for in Ghostwriter so far, where it doesn't do such a thing. It actually helps a lot. And for kids particularly, this tends to be a version of the trope. So if you have any ideas or you can think of an example, send it to me. Appreciate it.
The very first thing we learned to do last semester was to make a light blink on the Arduino. And when I learned to do that, I immediately had an idea. What if you could use the blinking light to teach iambic pentameter by making it light up for every stressed syllable? I thought this would be a simple thing, my very first independent project with the Arduino. However, as it started to develop, it became the goal of my work this year. As y'all saw from Rhiannon's project at the mid-year showcase, the Arduino comes with an LCD screen. The design of my project is to have an LCD screen that scrolls with text from Shakespeare and an LED light that blinks in proper time with the iambic pentameter. I haven't quite gotten the code for this sorted out yet, but I'm on my way. One thing that we've all had to get used to this semester is a considerable amount of failure. We've had failed components, like what happened to me at the mid-year showcase, but also failed project setups, failed code, and failures of understanding. Working with electrical wiring and with code, we've had to stretch our brains in ways that we in the humanities are not used to doing. We haven't always gotten where we meant to go, but we've learned a lot in the process.
And Deb's exactly right. Trial and error is really the basis of all of our work in this group, and it's been really, really rewarding. It's good to get a feel for the variety and all the possibilities of the components, the microcomputers, the printer bot, what everything can offer, even if it's really, really initially unclear about how you're going to make your dreams happen. Normally, we would have never actually done this stuff on our own, played with these things. So we're really happy that Machinic Invention existed this year and that we could play around with the stuff. So, thank you.
Hi, we're Currents, and we made a retrospective issue this year. We kind of went back through over 100 academic articles, 16 issues from 1999 to 2013. There are over 10 interviews and numerous reviews in the Currents archives. And so we had a lot to work with. This was it was amazing. I mean, it's kind of a history of technology. So we ended up choosing out of 100 articles 6 features in 3 sub-areas: accessibility, pedagogy, and multimodal composition and reception. There are additional features though, because there was so much rich content in the Currents archive. So we have sub-area introductions for each of these areas with interviews and additional content and tons of links. And there are also blog posts from 2013 and 2014 that sort of synthesize this content and that we used to kind of think through it as we were building the issue. So this is the title page at present. We're going to work on art, but we would like something that features all of the banners for the final issue. But these are the sub-areas and kind of how we're presenting it on the site. We found the limitations of Drupal 6.27 rather binding, and we had issues with getting images to post, and just all of you know this, you're all working on Drupal sites. So this is what we have at present. And this is the accessibility section. As you see, we covered John Slayton's Imagination Gap, which is from issue 6, I believe, back in 2002. John Slayton was a major Currents editor and a founder of the journal, and so we were very happy to feature his work. And pedagogy. Obviously, the lab generates a bunch of great scholarship on pedagogy. And so in this section, we focus primarily on games and gaming, since we've done so much in those areas. But in general, there are a lot of interesting treatments of distance learning on Currents from way back in the 90s. You really get the sense of the field in development through the journal.
Promise, I did not bully Kate into picking all gaming articles.
And here we have the multimodal section. As all of you know who've been in the lab and worked in the lab this year, there is so much cool stuff going on. We have interviews here. Some of them are Avital Ronell. We actually have that as a featured article, but we also, in the introduction, feature other interesting multimodal projects that the lab has published in Currents and generally interacted with. And so please check out this section, because it's, I think it's one of the best. And here's the Currents blog. We did a logo remodel on Currents and did the black logo to sort of have a change, but here we just sorted through the content, and Lily did the lion's share of processing and trying to make all of the important connections for our final subsection introductions and general introduction. And so here there are some QR codes. Please feel free to scan them. If you scan the top one, we'll, I assume, have these afterward too. You'll get to our worksheet. We gave kind of a handout at our workshop, and so that leads to that. Then in the section reflecting, we're inviting a number of people who have led the lab in the past, as well as all of you, to reflect on what you would like currents to be. And so this site, we're once again massaging the Drupal, but hopefully it will allow comments and different sorts of multimodal submissions to currents itself.
So we're going to have that up and ready for the little presentations in the classrooms afterwards, so you can feel free to kind of add your comments then or later privately.
Yep. And we would love your comments. We talked a lot during our workshop about what currents could be for the lab, and one of the things we talked about was repurposing the journal as an in-house publication venue for all of you to publish the work that the project groups are doing, and sometimes it seems like this is the final showcase, you know, you have this final product. But this would be for kind of works in progress and hopefully would help groups across years to have a record of what was important to earlier members of the group. And lastly, upgrading to Drupal 7. It would make life much easier, and it would allow currents to be something more than just a journal structure. It could have a more built out blog and forums for all of you to share your ideas and what you're working on in groups.
And
So,
one last screenshot of our reflections page.
Yes.
If you want to make a contribution, just add a new comment, and it should be available for anyone, even if you don't have an account for this page.
So thank you, and please read currents.
I am Cole, and I'm head of the digital archiving group. The group is Sarah and Jim, Jeremy, and Regina. We're sitting there. We've just got, you can wave it. We've got a couple things we wanted to do with the final showcase. We wanted to make sure not to sort of barrage you with too much stuff, because we've got a lot of good material to get through. So basically, I wanted to give a brief overview of what the group discovered this year and how we've thought about fixing some of those problems. The first problem we ran into took about a day to figure out. The DWRL has a serious archiving problem. Not that we lack archives, but we have a profusion of them. And that they take a huge variety of form with little effort to sort of centralize and organize. So, in order to understand the archiving problem, we decided to look at how the archive is being generated. One of the things we realized, the DWRL has a lot of processes which generate content. And this content doesn't have one place to go. It could end up thrown out, it could end up in someone's file cabinet at home. Often it gets stored on the cloud, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Email to oneself. We have a few informal archives. For instance, if you look for white papers on the DWRL website, you can find just sort of a list of all the white papers. Now, all of these measures are stopgap measures, and we started thinking about possibly reimagining the DWRL's relationship to archiving. So, in terms of the actual archive, to give you an idea of what it looks like, we have the stuff in Fact 10 on the shelves, ranges of boxes. Sometimes the boxes are full of CDs. The CDs are full of file trees. So these are archives within archives within archives. And also, of course, everyone's favorite stopgap measure, PBWorks. Now, the issue with PBWorks, for those of you guys who are current on XKCD, is that the deeper you go, the more horrifying it gets as you look at the early strata of the internet. We did not find any corn midis, and that's too bad because we need a reward for digging far that deep down. But PBWorks is not built to do this kind of archiving, but we're using it as an archive space. Okay, so the file tree contains 171 individual folders. That's over almost 500 pages, over 700 individual files. And that's fine. There are a lot of us here. We're all prolific in our own ways. The biggest issue is that less than 13% of these files are being used for anything, which is to say that PBWorks has become kind of an informal trash bin. And when the next platform comes around, there's no reason to think that it's not going to end up on anything other than one of those DVDs in one of those boxes sitting in a shelf in Fact 10. So, what we decided to do early on is we decided to approach it as a research problem. This led to some theoretical musing and real work, which eventually resulted in a push to do an article. Jeremy's version of that article was accepted as a poster presentation at the Texas Digital Humanities Consortium. But beyond that sort of theoretical positioning, we wanted to think about an actual practical way of fixing these problems. And we decided to break it down to two needs. Now, the first need is to think a little bit about what the DWRL has put out and how we can organize it. And the second one is to think a little bit about project management, which is what Sarah's going to talk to you guys about.
Okay, so
part of what our group has been working on is starting sort of an informal pilot of a new project management system that could be very helpful, especially for the larger groups in the lab. This application is called Glass Cubes, and we have just a short screencast of the kinds of things that Glass Cubes will allow project groups to do should they choose to take this route. So what we wanted to do was separate project management and the activities that members of project groups undertake with active files. Something that we noticed right away about PBWorks was that active files get thrown in with retired files, makes it very difficult to find things that your group is collaborating on. So this application not only lets you share and maintain a group calendar, schedule meetings without a 13 email Gmail chain, lets you post meeting minutes in a discussion thread. It lets you delegate tasks and note to your group members the progress that you've made on individual tasks. You can upload files and share right there on the dashboard with your group. And something that we really liked about Glass Cubes is that it links directly with Google Docs. So we know a lot of the project groups in the lab like to work off of Google Docs. That's something that Glass Cubes integrates fairly smoothly and can help you keep updated on what's going on those Google Docs. We also liked that this was something that could be sort of easily customizable for the lab, either as the lab using one single workspace or each project group working individually. So again, Glass Cubes or any project management system modeled off the same kind of system allows you to isolate active files from retired content, create and delegate tasks, share and maintain a calendar, upload files, and probably the most important when it comes to this divide between active files and retired files, allows you to download retired content in stable file forms and move it to the permanent archive.
Okay, so that brings us, I'm going to talk just quickly through this Omeka, which is going to cover the actual archive. So basically all Omeka does is it's a platform that allows us to attach metadata systematically through a Dublin core to a wide variety of files. The metadata can include storage for files that are too large for us to put on our servers, and that might have storage as a VHS tape. It also allows us to easily sort the collection. This is really important. Going to the next slide. So essentially, we've been building this thing called the Digital Archive for the DWRL, which is powered by Omeka, and it's set up so that you not only are we able to sort of organize and search through the data of the data that we've been cataloging, you can also organize it in collections and exhibits. If you want to see every collection, every bibliography the DWRL has ever produced, you can easily search all of those things. Okay, so the advantages here are that basically the way we'd imagine implementing this is at the end of every year, we could go around, an archiving group or an AD could ask the different groups in the DWRL what things they want to catalog, and those things will be put in the archive. So that way, we don't need to worry about trawling through a vast workspace system and picking out the things that we might find interesting. So the function of the archive is both a usable, searchable database that actually is going to allow us to have an institutional memory that's useful, and it's also going to allow us to showcase the stranger things. Now, we don't have time for it here, but in the open house, we will show you guys our most brilliant find. If you want to click that, we'll just put the stream there, which is circa 1984, a Ghostbusters rhetoric instructional video. So the full thing will be on display in our open house. It's 30 minutes of joy, guys.
Thank you guys so much. Everybody, let's give everybody a round of applause for a great work.
choice. I write in the active voice.